Hello folks, here's my review and analysis of the Phylida Seamaster Professional Homage. Out here in the cold light of day. A little wrist roll for you, and you can see the segmented bracelet and how the polished sections in the middle catch the light there. And as I roll round, you can see the slight dome on that sapphire crystal. And crucially, that crystal isn't too reflective, so you can still clearly make out the face of the watch. Let's pop inside for a closer look. If we look here at the bracelet, the edges are nicely smoothed off and properly finished. It's a very flexible design. The 5 links aren't actually 5 links. These highly polished ones on the outside are actually additional slivers of metal on either side of the smaller link here. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 links in the bracelet. That makes the bracelet quite complex. It's alright once it's sized. There is some half links here. There is no micro adjust or on the fly adjustment on the bracelet. The clasp, the deployant clasp with the 2 buttons to operate it, is quite firm and secure. I haven't had any accidental deployments of it, so that's good news. It also has a diver's extension. Pop that out, which is a nice touch, although I've never used one in my life because I don't think I'll ever wear this watch with a wetsuit. Although it does claim to have 200 metres of water resistance. And I think that's probably genuine. This watch is actually a very well made article. Now, the diver's extension, I got into a little bit of trouble with it at first because the clasp wasn't fastening after I'd used it, after I put it back in. And what it is there is a bit of a trick to putting it back in. You put the first one in until it clicks and then push it over. If you don't do that, it doesn't seat properly. Now you see everything's fine. Anyway, as I mentioned, the bracelet has all of these extra links. It's a solid bracelet. I mean, it's not hollow, but it's made up of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pieces on each link, which is quite complicated, as is the bracelet adjustment. What you have here is you have a screw, and you might think it's just a screw pin, but if you look on the other side there is also a screw. And what's happening here is these screws are sort of basically caps that keep a pin in place, and you have to undo the very tiny screw, being careful not to lose it, it's quite a shallow screw, on both sides, then put it in a tool which I'll show you in a minute, and hammer the link out with one of these by hammering the pin out, and then you'll need a pair of pliers to grab it and pull it all the way, because as I said, it is an overly complicated bracelet. Having said that, it looks absolutely smashing and it's very comfortable to wear, and you won't be adjusting it every day. Okay, talking about our complex bracelet adjustment, what you're going to need is, first of all, a screwdriver, one of these little jeweler screwdrivers, in order to undo these screw caps on either side of the link you want to adjust. Once you've done that, you're going to need this, one of these. It's a block, and what you do is, you see the block's got holes underneath, that's so the pin can come all the way through. What we do is we put the bracelet in the block like so, then you take a tool like this, a pusher. When the screw's out, you push that down, then tap, tap, tap with a hammer to knock the pin until it becomes visible on the other side, and then a pair of pliers to grab it and pull it out through. Now it all works well enough, it's just the fiddliest adjust I've ever had. Having said that, I've had another watch that I reviewed very recently that actually broke several tools, so it was actually much harder to adjust the bracelet, even though it would appear to have been a simpler system. Anyway, that's your bracelet. Just bear in mind, you're probably going to put this into a watchmaker or a jeweller to get adjusted for you, unless you have these tools, which are available quite cheaply on eBay or AliExpress even. But just be warned, it's not a straightforward bracelet adjustment. You're not just undoing a screw and drawing it out. Don't know whether a brief description of the watch benefits you at all, because you can actually see it here. But what we've got is a ceramic bezel which is lumed. These numbers light up green at night and they're very bright. They're really good. More about the lume in a minute or two, because that's one place where the watch does fall down slightly. Another aspect is the face here is going after the Omega Speedmaster 300 Professionals white dialed version. Now they make their dials from a ceramic material, zirconium oxide, I believe. You see ZO2 embossed just above where automatic is on this watch. Phylida make no such claims, and this watch is definitely more of a cream colour than white. Now, I'm not going to list that as a fault, because that's an entirely subjective thing, and I think it looks absolutely smashing. I think it gives the watch a certain touch of class. I think without using the brilliant white ceramic material that the Omega uses and just having white paint, it would look quite cheap. And the cream colour that they have instead gives it an air of expensiveness, which is quite nice. Now you see the light catching there on the wave pattern on the dial. Again, just copied straight off the Omega original that this is homaging. Anyway, the face here, we have a red end on the second hand and the luminous lollipop on that second hand. We have these strange Omega style skeletonized hands, which are broader towards the tip with a round lume pip on it. And now I'm going to talk about the lume. Have a look here at the lume shot. Now it looks really good here in the photograph, but that's got more to do with the light gathering capacity of the phone camera that I used to take this picture. What happens is that, strangely, I've never had it this way round before, the pips, the indices, they fade really quite quickly. The hands remain visible for quite a long time, at least to your night adjusted eyes. So you have your outside bezel, which glows like a beacon in green, and your blue lumed hands, which shine reasonably well, and your, for some reason, rubbishy indices. Don't understand that at all. It's the one area, it really is the one area where this watch does fall down. The lug to lug of the watch is quite narrow, like you see here. I didn't take that measurement for some reason when I was unboxing. Lug tip to lug tip. A bit slippery, so it's not doing well. 42.1. So this one wears very well on the wrist, and if you look, the bracelet drops straight down at the sides. So this watch is quite good for people with smaller wrists, except for one thing. I'll slip it on, and if you look at it from that angle, it does stand quite proud rather than conforming to the wrist as it goes down. So it's a subjective thing. You may or may not like it. I think that the watch looks great on. It suits my size of wrist just perfectly, and you could easily wear it with a smaller wrist because of the way the bracelet conforms. It drops down at the lugs. But be aware, it's quite a thick watch. The first top marks for the watch is the finish. I haven't had a China Direct watch before that I wasn't able to find anything wrong with until now. The watch is all smooth edges. There are no sharp edges that you could cut yourself or use to chisel furniture. It is a very accurate facsimile of the Seamaster Professional. The helium escape valve, I've looked into it. It is functional, but I bet you're not going saturation diving with this. Don't ever touch it. I do not think that the waterproof would survive the opening of that valve. If you forget to screw that back in again, you're going to be screwed. It's going to fill up with water. It claims 200 metres of water resistance, and it would be a shame to spoil that by carelessly fiddling with a valve that you will ever use. You can see that the valve has helium HE on it. The crown is unsigned, and they don't do any signing on the watch itself, which I think is a pity, but then I've been taking the mince out of the name Phylida, and other people have online as well, and they probably wish they'd maybe chosen something else, at least for the English speaking world. But this is one of the best made watches I've ever had off AliExpress. The finishing is really, really nice, up to a level that you would expect on a watch costing far more. Absolutely wonderful. You can see that there's a bit of damage there but I did that. I did that carelessly, removing the cellophane that's shrink wrapped around the bracelet when I first got it. Kicking myself for that. But anyway, very nicely finished, and the contrast on that bracelet between those polished outside links and the brushed bits is really, really good. Likewise, on the watch itself, you have contrasting polished upper surfaces, brushed side surfaces, and the whole thing is really, really good. Now, some people may or may not like the scalloped nature of the bezel here, but that's just because they've copied Omega. Omega do it that way. Other people more used to probably coin-edged ones. So anyway, big plus points here. Big brownie points to Phylida for the fit and finish of this watch, which at least in the example I got is absolutely superlative. Really, really good. Top mark. Now, I chose this watch with a Chinese movement in it rather than the Miyota, mostly because I've heard bad things about the Miyota movement, with juddering second hands as it makes its way around, and a very noisy rotor. Now, the rotor in this watch is nice and quiet. The winding action is nice and smooth and positive, and also it feels quite nice when it engages when you change the date. I found that the accuracy is somewhere between 4 and 8 seconds a day, which is really, really quite good for a budget movement, because this was the budget option with this watch, and I'm really pleased I lucked out with that. I didn't make the wrong decision. And of course, just to demonstrate, the watch does hack. That's the main reason I don't like the Miyota movement. I don't see the point in not being able to set the seconds. And accuracy is also a bit of a moving feast when you don't know how to set the watch for the correct time in the first place. So in summary, I think this is an excellent buy. It's a beautifully finished watch. The only two negatives with it are the finicky bracelet adjustment and the disappointing and unusual underperformance of the Lume in the indices. Usually, because the indices are quite large, you have an opportunity for the Lume to last quite well, but not in the case of this watch, which is a bit of a shame. Now, Phylida sell the watch unbranded. You can choose Phylida watches. I think this one and the Aquaterra Homage, you can choose to have it with no branding at all on the dial. I don't like that. I don't like a sterile dial. And joking apart, I don't really mind the name Phylida, especially when you find out that they make such an excellent watch for the money. I think, well, even not for the money, even at a much higher price point, I think this watch is actually very, very well put together. This is a handsome beast, and you don't have anything to make apologies for, even when you look at this close up. It's a really, really nice watch. Anyway, till the next one, bye-bye folks.